Bernie Sanders. Bernie fucking Sanders. Bernie fucking Sanders.
Tax breaks for the rich, destruction of Medicare, destruction of Social Security as we know it, lowering the minimum wage or abolishing it. How many votes do you think you get? Not a whole lot. Not a problem. But that doesn't win you elections. You package it. How do you package it? So this is what you do. What you do is divide people up. But everybody in this room is in agreement. Split people, working class, white against black. Instead of working together to create decent jobs for all. Those uppity women now. You follow what I'm saying? So you split people up, and then they end up, if you're a middle class person, voting against your own interests, and the rich go laughing all the way to the bank. And our job is to bring people together.
Bernie frickin' Sanders is like a superhero for the everyday people of America. Imagine a politician who actually wants to help the regular folks rather than just the super rich. Bernie frickin' Sanders.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
The working people of this country are extremely angry. They have a right to be angry.
And his track record is insane. For years, Bernie has been fighting to make life better for workers, kids, families, and whoever is struggling. I think that he actually really wants good for most people, and he wants good for the country. He wants healthcare for all as a basic human right.
Bottom line is that because of our corrupt political system, we have a healthcare system designed not to provide healthcare to all people, to make huge profits for the drug companies and the insurance companies, and that is what's happening.
He wants college to be free as he cares about educating people of America, and he wants everyone that works hard to actually have a chance. Bernie Sanders is the frickin' man, and in my opinion, a national treasure. He sure has given the old Democratic Party a good scolding, and I believe that they fully deserve it.
Where is the Democratic Party? Are they prepared to stand up to these powerful corporate interests?
Now, they say he's old, and yeah, I suppose that's true, but compared to most politicians, especially liberal ones, he is very much with the times. They say that people listen to podcasts. Well, Bernie doesn't only go on a bunch of podcasts, he creates his own. When other politicians are going door to door like it's the 1950s, Bernie's out here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and what other platform there is, spreading his message. If only the Democratic Party would move away from their old-timey ways and get with the times. I mean, going door to door, what the heck is that? And they should grow a freaking backbone when it comes to corporate donors and everything they stand for, rather than trying to cater to the right and basically try to become the Republicans. And when you try to become a different thing than you actually are, you will always be, at best, second best, and in a two-party system, that just ain't gonna cut it. If they would have done at least the old Obama way, or better yet, the Sanders way, and I honestly do not think that the American people have ever gotten the debate that they deserve, which would be Trump versus Sanders. Bernie is one of the few politicians that walks the walk that he talks, rather than just talking and flocking. A man that's been treated awful and unfair by his own party on many occasions. I believe many people would vote for him over Trump, as Bernie is all about change, and I think that's what a lot of people want. I interrupt this video to bring you a special advertisement from the evil corporations and people of America.
Bernie Sanders supports tech-supported schools that teaches math and science to children. He believes American kids should have free education on your dollar. He supports free school lunches to the disabled and those that are in need. Tell Bernie he's trash and America doesn't want him. He's even been caught red-handed trying to raise minimum wage and salaries for teachers, leaving billionaires to be the ones that pick up the check. How fair is that? It's almost like he thinks building infrastructure is more important than giving tax breaks to the wealthy. They're the ones that provide our jobs. Tell Bernie to take his plan for equality and justice for all back to where his grandmother immigrated from, Poland. No wonder he sticks up for migrants. He's basically an alien himself. Tell Bernie that America doesn't want him. Vote no on Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders was born September 8th, 1941, as a Virgo, if you're into those sort of things, in Brooklyn, New York, to two immigrant parents who happened to be of Jewish descent. His father, Eli Sanders, immigrated from Poland, and his mother, Dorothy Glassberg, was born in New York City, to whom's parents immigrated from Poland and Russia. The Sanders family lived a modest life, as his father, Eli, worked as a paint salesman, and the family money was often pretty tight. Bernie describes his childhood as being shaped by financial struggles. He also recalls his father telling stories about his ancestors who died in the Holocaust. These stories helped shape Bernie's views on justice and equality. Growing up in Brooklyn, Bernie attended James Madison High School. After high school was over, Sanders attended Brooklyn College for about a year before transferring to the University of Chicago in 1960. In Chicago, he majored in political science and became deeply involved in the civil rights movement. Sanders was a member of CORE, Congress of Racial Inequality, which was a political group that held protests, sit-ins, and non-violent demonstrations. He was arrested in 1963 for protesting against racial segregation in Chicago public schools. During his college years, he also protested the Vietnam War, aligning himself with the anti-war movement of the 1960s. Sanders graduated from the University of Chicago in 1964. After college, Bernie moved to Vermont, drawn by the cultural movement thriving there. He worked various jobs, including as a carpenter, a writer, a filmmaker, while continuing his advocacy for those who needed it. In the 1970s, Bernie Sanders joined the Liberty Union Party, a small left-wing political party in Vermont. He would then run for several different statewide offices, including for governor and senator, though he did not win. These campaigns helped him refine his message and gain recognition as an outspoken challenger to the political establishment. And now I'd like to tell you a few stories about when Bernie Sanders, with the help of many organizations, the power of the people, and perhaps one not so obvious ally, helped to bring change to this beautiful country of ours, the United States of America. The ACA was passed in 2010 in the Obama era, extending access to healthcare by protecting people with pre-existing conditions, extending Medicaid, and offering subsidies to make insurance more accessible and more affordable for more Americans.
Majority of Americans, for 85% of Americans who already have health insurance through your employer or Medicare or Medicaid, you don't need to sign up for coverage through a website at all. You've already got coverage. What the Affordable Care Act does for you is to provide you with new benefits and protections. You may not know it, but you're already benefiting from these provisions in the law.
But when the Republicans in 2016 got Congress and the presidency, of course they were going to try to repeal the ACA, or also known as Obamacare. The proposed bill would have stripped away over 20 million people's insurance, rolling back Medicaid extensions, leaving low-income and disabled individuals without health care, eliminating protections for pre-existing conditions, which affects all sorts of working people. He traveled the country holding rallies, town halls, educating citizens, telling them to fight back. He appeared on TV, social media, and pretty much anybody that would give him a voice to tell the American people that their health care was on the line and about to be taken away, basically for greed. Sanders then worked with healthcare advocacy groups and Democratic leaders to present a united front against the repeal efforts of the Republicans. This repeal reached a head in July 2017 with a single vote in the Senate. The Republicans realized they weren't going to get a full repeal. So in a last-ditch effort to dismantle the ACA to its bare minimum, they would put into place what they called skinny repeal, which would basically make an already flawed system much more flawed. Sanders and others warned it would still leave millions of Americans without health care.
America, when you throw 16 million people off of the health insurance they currently have.
It all boiled down to looking like that the skinny repeal was going to work. But the deciding vote boiled down to Senator John McCain, who was late to the session, with all the Republicans going one way and all the Democrats going the other, but Republicans running the House. When he did finally get there, he walked up slowly and calmly. And then something like a movie. While most of the Republicans thought that he would side with Mitch McConnell, he had already made his mind up, and in my mind it was the right decision. And in a dramatic moment, it was a thumbs down, and the repeal effort failed. Sanders, of course, would praise McCain for his courage to stand up from his own party who had taken the wrong side of history. and celebrated the victory as a testament to the power of public pressure and the power of activists. The ACA kept millions of Americans insured. And though it's not perfect, more people are insured than ever before. Sanders then used this victory to promote his vision for Medicare for all.
Every other major country on earth does, guaranteeing health care to all as a right. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. This is not a communist society up there in Montreal.
Exclaiming that true health care reform is required. Universal coverage should come to the United States like it has for almost every country in the first world. This battle once again cemented Sanders' reputation as a ruthless advocate for health care and basic human rights, and reminded the nation that fighting for what is right and just actually can sometimes make a difference.
That was an historically important vote. We're talking about 32 million people, including many in Vermont, being thrown off the health care that they have. That was an act of courage. He was one of 3 Republicans.
And I know that if Bernie stays alive and healthy, he will be right there if they ever try it again.
Morning, remember thumbs down. We said, what the hell happened?
If you go out to the average American, do your poll. Do you think healthcare is a human right? Most Americans will say yes. Do you think the American healthcare system is working well for ordinary people? They will say no. What we're taking on is an insurance industry and a pharmaceutical industry that has enormous power. They make huge campaign contributions. They have thousands of lobbyists in Washington, D.C. So it's not what the American people think the system is good. They know it's terrible. But this is a corrupt political system in which even when people know that we need change, the powers that be are fighting us and preventing our change.
Bernie has been standing up for fairness and democracy in America for decades. Now, one of those times that Bernie Sanders was sticking up for what's right in the world was when he was trying to unscandal the VA in 2014, when a bunch of reports revealed that veterans were experiencing extremely long wait times, or even unjustifiably being denied for medical care, resulting in death and bankruptcy for many of them.
It started in Phoenix, Arizona, as my colleagues know, but it has spread all over the country. And it begins with the terrible story of perhaps 40 veterans having literally died for lack of care.
The scandal sparked public outrage and bipartisan calls for public action to address the systematic failures within the VA and to figure out a way to better ensure the health care of the ones that have served us. And at the time, both sides were pretty sane and they wanted to ensure better health care across the board for veterans. Problem was how to go about it. Compromise was in order. Sanders worked tirelessly to develop a comprehensive solution. Known for his progressive stance on healthcare, Sanders approached the issue with the belief that healthcare is a right for people, but especially veterans, and veterans deserved immediate, affordable, and accessible care as a basic right.
I believe every member of this Senate and every American understands the very deep debt of gratitude that we owe to the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend this country.
Sanders wrote the bill to be bipartisan, to make sure it would pass a divided Congress. He worked with Senator John McCain, a Republican and fellow veteran advocate, to build a good legislative framework that could address the VA's shortcomings. The bill was named the Veterans Access, Choice, and Accountability Act of 2014, a landmark piece of legislation that aimed to improve the VA's performance and provide health care relief to veterans and their families. A key feature of the bill included access to private care for veterans who faced long wait times or lived far from any VA facility. This would allow veterans to receive care from private healthcare providers, ensuring quicker and more accessible treatments. This got $16.3 billion to the VA, with $10 billion of it going to the new Choice program, so they could see their own doctors, and $5 billion to hire additional medical staff and to improve infrastructure for VA facilities. The accountability part of the bill allowed for dismantlement of senior VA officials who were found to be underperforming or even engaged in misconduct. This, of course, was to address the concerns and lack of accessibility within the VA system. Some of these guys were corrupt.
So reaching a compromise among people who look at the world very differently is not easy. But in this process, Senator John McCain of Arizona and I have tried our best to come forward with an agreement. It's an agreement which I'm sure he is not 100% happy about, and I can fully assure you I am not 100% happy about. I would have written a very, very different bill.
The bill passed with overwhelming bipartisanship and support within both the House and the Senate. There was widespread agreement that we needed to address the VA crisis. President Barack Obama signed it into law in 2014. Many veterans advocates have said they liked the bill, at least at the time, and saw the reform as a necessary step in restoring trust in the VA and to improve the health care for those that have served across the board. Sanders saw it as a step forward, but acknowledged that there was more work to be done if we were to face all the challenges that veterans live with on a daily basis. And I just want to say, even though I did not agree with John McCain's politics, he is a good example of someone that is right-winged that I believe to be a very good man. I just want to say that I am completely unqualified for this topic, and this is just a brief overview of it. I kind of stumbled into this topic when researching Bernie and all the great things that he's done and been a part of, and I think he wants the best for veterans, obviously, and I think a lot of people on the other side, at least at that time, also did, but had different opinions, and it goes on and on. There's still problems at the VA, and there's been problems. Things have gotten better, things have gotten worse. I don't know. I have family members that are veterans, but I'm not one myself, so I do feel weird. And more I dig into it, I just know that this topic deserves much more than I can provide. That being said, just a disclaimer to maybe get myself out of a little bit of hot water. I think I'm over my head a bit. This is just a YouTube video on the internet, something where I can put my creative energy into to produce something that hopefully is positive, both me putting positive energy into it and hopefully the people that find this video also think it's positive. I hope you do. And just to show, maybe spread some awareness about Bernie Sanders and his allies, and to say that there are still people in power that are looking out for the betterment of America and the people that live here. If there was ever a politician that was working for the people, it's Bernie Sanders. The list of times that he is sticking up for the American people goes on and on.
Fight for health care for all people. Make sure that all of our kids get the quality education that they need. Expand Social Security. Are they prepared to do those things?
While he was in the House of Representatives in 2002, he was criticizing the Iraq War. He was constantly calling it a mistake and a war with false pretenses. He introduced the Medicare for All bill in 2017, which I don't hear talked about enough. I mean, corporate media, right? They're all entangled. BlackRock, Vanguard. But he was attempting to push a single-payer system that would provide healthcare as a universal right. Although the bill did not pass, it had widespread support and furthered the debate if healthcare should be a basic human right, kind of like it is in all other first world countries. Sanders has always supported raising the minimum wage to a living wage. Sanders introduced the Stop Bezos Act, which would pressure large corporations, particularly Amazon and Walmart, to pay higher wages to their workers. The campaign was sort of successful, but following the campaign, Amazon was scared enough, or at least they happened to, raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. Not really a living wage, but certainly more than $7.50. In 2019, Sanders co-sponsored the Green Deal. The resolution was to combat climate change by transitioning to renewable energy, creating green jobs, and addressing the climate crisis. Yes, more jobs. Different jobs, but more jobs. He supported efforts to strengthen unions and workers' rights, including advocating for PRO Act, which would have made it easier to unionize within the United States. Sanders consistently fights to lower prescription drug prices, advocating for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. I mean, think about that, not being able to negotiate drug prices when you're buying them in bulk. That is, think of any other business that, that's how you buy in bulk. It doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't be allowed to do that, and just shows how corporatized parts of the government are. So when Sanders was supporting legislation that would allow Americans to import cheaper medication from other countries other than the normal brands that we usually buy from, I wasn't surprised, because that would help millions of people in America. Throughout his entire adult life, he has been working tirelessly to stand up against any person or corporation that is attempting to strip away rights or exploit the American people. He has given his life to make the world more free and more fair for more people, and I pray that his legacy is not in vain. Now in his later years, he has still not given up or given in to corporate greed, and he has inspired some that I hope follow his footsteps for a better tomorrow, because as we speak, he is working with and talking to, amplifying the message of people that are young, strong, and ready to continue the work that must be done. It's important to note that nothing he has done was done alone. There is strength in numbers, and a large part of what makes Bernie able to do anything at all is the ability to get elected in the first place, and then once being elected, the ability to compromise with people that think very differently than him. The work is never done, and today may seem dark, but people like Bernie Sanders have a clear vision for the future, one that is concurrent with the Constitution and its principles, a world that seems so close yet so far away, where it does not matter what race, sex, or religion you are. A world that we can see that we are more the same than different. A world that we hold each other up and catch each other when we fall. A world that I believe is possible together.